Welcome to Revolution Against Evolution. I'm your host, Doug Sharp.
I'm your co-host, Rich Gear, and I am real excited about today's topic, Doug, for our audience out here.
We have a special report
Yes.
on the iDINO project, or iDINO project, whatever you want to call it.
I like to say Dino, but it's Dino probably, iDINO.
And this is an effort that is originated with the Creation Research Society. And this special report comes from the latest issue of the Creation Research Society Quarterly. And there is a lot of excitement that's going on because the studies that they've been doing on dinosaur bone that shows that there is soft tissue that is found within dinosaur bone is really a proof that dinosaurs could have existed alongside of human beings not so long ago, rather than 68 million years ago.
Right, which we as creationists have long since contended that probably, when you really get right down to it, notwithstanding some mythologization, I don't know whether I pronounced that word right, but in combination of certain different kinds of traits, probably the dinosaurs of science and the dragons of legend probably a lot more closer together than people would think. In the past, I remember growing up, Doug, when they would talk about dragons in the skies and being about dinosaurs, they made it no doubt that they were talking about in a metaphorical sense. These are not really dragons; these are just these are dinosaurs, and they lived millions of years ago. Or they're flying reptiles, which are technically, again, not dinosaurs. The point of it is, Doug, is what I really was finding out when I was reading some of the article here, and there's several articles in this quarterly here. But the first one, it's interesting. They've been finding soft tissue for several decades. Apparently, I didn't know that. I thought it was something fairly recent. With what's it, Dr. Schweitzer?
Dr. Mary Schweitzer was the one who was getting the becoming famous for her research in this area, and previously they weren't looking for this.
But her mentor or teacher or associate with Dr. Jack Horner, who's very well known paleontologist, he's the dinosaur guy, you know.
Right.
But he said, when she found this, his words to her were, the creationists are going to love you.
Yeah, something like that.
And what's interesting, Doug, and this
creationists are going to have a field day with this.
Yeah, I said I never knew, but according to the article, Dr. Schweitzer apparently started out as a young Earth creationist, but as we have found all too often, most of these ostensibly young Earth creationists are naive young kids who really don't have a good grasp of what biblical creationism is. They really don't. Right. They have a few ideas, they've seen a few sound bites, but they don't really understand the substantive issues. And so they get convinced when they go to college, out of high school sometimes, and the millions of years sways them, and they think, they have a very simplistic idea of what creation really is about. And so many of them, they'll abandon them, and of course, since they don't have the answers to the objections the professors are coming up with, not even understanding that some of the professors' objections are flawed, okay, they feel like, the scientific thing must be evolution, or must be millions of years.
Well, peer pressure to believe anything other than the evolutionary paradigm in college is very strong. You have to overcome the fact that you might get graded down because you believe in this. Not necessarily that you give the wrong answers. You can give all the right answers, but if someone finds out that you don't believe what you're actually writing down as the answers, then your career may become in jeopardy.
Oh yeah, we've documented. Well, actually, a very good friend of ours, Dr. Jerry Bergman, has documented this over and over again in books like The Criterion, and that was his first one. And then what was the most recent one he came out with that really went through the slaughter of the dissidents. Slaughter of the dissidents, and that is incredible, tremendously footnoted. And all that aside, though, it's just it's sad when you really see people doing some good science research, but because their blinders are on, as Dr. Van Fan said years ago, and I think he was quoting Einstein or somebody like that. He said, your philosophy will prevent you, or will allow you what you can see. In other words, they cannot see. In fact, Dr. Schweitzer had a couple of responses saying, no, it's contamination. No,
Right.
it's this. No, it's that. Because they drew the right conclusion that, what is it, radiation? What kind of radiation? It's the radiation.
Well, from different radioactive elements, if you get the
Bones love it, put it this way.
bones will absorb the stuff.
And destroy any soft tissue, any remnants of it. So because they think it's 68 million years old,
Right.
or whatever, they have to come an alternative explanation, because the idea, it cannot be soft tissue from a T-Rex, which is what she found. It cannot be. It has to be contamination, because we know the radiation will destroy the soft tissue. It'll never last 68 million years. Okay.
Well, not only that, there is also the fact that up till very recently, no one has ever thought to subject dinosaur bone to radiocarbon dating, because they understand that if you find radiocarbon in dinosaur bone, it isn't that old. There's a very short limit to the age of
carbon-14.
Carbon-14, and so if you find carbon-14 in a sample, you automatically understand that it is not carbon dead. It has carbon in it, and that means that it hasn't been depleted of the carbon-14. And you would expect it to be all gone by 50,000 or 100,000 years at least.
Yeah, that's usually with our modern abilities to extract carbon-14. Yeah, in using modern day assumptions of gradualism, Doug, using those paradigms, you still can't get over 100,000 years old. But Doug, the thing about it is, we've talked about this as well, for those who are not familiar with it, they've been finding coal and diamond, they've been finding carbon-14 in these elements, which should not happen.
Limestone.
In the matrix of, see, you could appeal to contamination just only so much, but then that begs the question, Doug, why is not your long ages contamination?
Right. Yeah.
Or why, it's only when you get the date you want that you accept it as not contaminated. That to me is not science. That's wishful thinking, Doug. That's basically proving the point before it's proven, and it's almost an idea of a circular reasoning. Because you and I, we've talked about this over the years too, and it's good to reiterate it for those who have not seen that. There are times, Doug, and we know this, they come up with dates that are inordinately too long. They'll have 40 billion lifespan, 40 billion year dates, or 20 billion year old things for things on the earth. They go, well, that can't be right, so they try to get it down. As well as they have the dates that are younger than they want, so they keep calibrating, which begs the question again, how reliable are these methods? But saying that, carbon-14, if anything, Doug, has become the creation's friend, not our enemy.
Well, it certainly has.
You do not need to be afraid of carbon-14. When they use carbon-14, they know it's a buzzword. Just like, Doug, really the evolutionists wouldn't need to be so afraid of soft tissue in dinosaurs if they hadn't used the dinosaur as a propaganda lizard to prop up their evolutionary paradigm. But since they've locked and loaded in that for so many years, now we're coming up with things that are really smacking them in the face, and their predictions are turning out to be all wrong.
And if you talk to any school child and you mention to them dinosaurs, and you ask them how old the dinosaur bones are,
when did dinosaurs live?
When did the dinosaurs live? They'll always say millions of years ago.
That's because they've been a long time ago, the littler ones.
Right.
But when you ask them, did human beings ever see dinosaurs? Most of them almost say, no, dinosaurs and humans never saw one another.
Except for the Flintstones and Alley-Oop and some of these other things.
But those are cartoons, and that's okay, But the point of it is they've been used as a propaganda thing for many, many decades. In fact, the late 1800s they were using it. Since the great bone wars from Cope and Marsh, the evolutionary paradigm, the millions of years was being used during those times. The thing about it is, it's remarkable, Doug, that Dr. Schweitzer, who sees this, it's almost argumentative that this does not prove. She's being enough of a scientist, a real scientist, to acknowledge this stuff is here.
Right.
But now the
make no bones about it. The evolutionists want this to go away.
Yeah, they want this to go away because this is not. And the problem is now that once it's, you know what it reminds me of? It's like Gorbachev and Dayton. You've opened the box. Sorry, democracy's coming in. You know, it's like this is the problem is you guys have had a lock on the debate for so many years. The creationists get accused of doing this, that, and the other thing. But the reality is you've got all the educational facilities, you got the media, you got the governmental grants and things given to you. What we have is a bunch of people who have looked into it for themselves, who are independent thinkers, and we have luckily prolific writers. We have a lot of very good writers, and they've written laws, but they research it. But you have locked the debate up because you are afraid. And to me, that's not science either. Science is willing to take it where it goes, and you're not, which indicates what we've said all along. The very thing you accuse creationists of being, religious, is in fact what you are. Because you have a religious paradigm to prop up, which props up atheism or a lack of belief in the biblical viewpoint, which has been recorded for us as to when the world was created. And,
let's talk about the iDINO project itself.
Yeah, let's talk about that.
This is a project that has been sponsored by the Creation Research Society, and you can, if you go to www.creationresearch.org, there's actually a place you can donate money to this project. It's an ongoing research project, and the preliminary results have been published in this particular journal. And then there's a whole bunch of new things that they're going to try to investigate as well. Mark Armitage was one of the primary people who have been doing a lot of the research, because Mark Armitage and Kevin Anderson. Kevin, we both Rich and I know them quite well, and
they're great guys, yeah.
And they have. They did this research at the research center out in Arizona, and Mark had his electron microscopes there, and I think you and I saw.
Yeah,
those.
we did. Yeah.
But what he did was there's a place in Montana where there's a ranch, and the guy who owns the ranch is a creationist. So they've been opening this place up for exploration for digging up dinosaur bones.
Now they are sympathetic to the creation.
Yes, they are.
Paradigm, yeah.
And there's actually a creation museum up there called, and it's sponsored by a group called Foundation for Creation Truth or something like that.
Okay.
It's called FACT. And anyway, they have this creation museum up there, and they are showing a lot of the dinosaur bone they find. It's not necessarily fossilized, it's the dinosaur bone.
See, yeah, so it's not been... See, a lot of people don't understand. Maybe that might be a good time for some people who maybe are not aware of the difference between a fossil and a fossil bone, fossilized bone, because there is a big difference. And I don't know, you want to kind of maybe share to people what that really is, so people can understand why this is significant?
A fossil is where rock, limestone has actually replaced the bone that was there. But in these cases, many times the bone is still there. It's not fossilized.
Right, and I guess that's a book, because I remember when I was young, because I thought, well, bones are kind of already kind of like a rock anyway. They're sort of like, they're made out of calcium, which is a mineral, and things like that. But the original material, down to the cellular level, gets replaced by limestone or other minerals, and so the original bone is gone. But what we're saying is they're finding now bones that are there now. The soft tissue, Doug, is even more significant, I think. Bone, you can say, well, that could last a long time. But again, you must grasp the deep time these people are trying to sell you on. 68 million years is nothing. They really want to sell you on 225 million years is the beginning of the Triassic period. Jurassic period is 140 million years ago. It ended, the Cretaceous ends 65 million years ago. But 1 million is 1,000 thousands.
Right.
65 million is 65,000 thousands of years. Nothing will last that long, okay? Of a regular bone.
Now, what they're trying to do, what the
You know?
evolutionists are trying to do now, they're backpedaling, and they say because these soft tissues have iron in them, you know, from like hemoglobin and things
Right.
like that. It's the iron that preserves the soft tissues, and so
Okay.
and so what one of the articles in here I was looking at was they go into the chemistry of how these soft tissues break down.
Okay.
And they show, places where the amino acids that make up these different protein materials
Right.
really have weaknesses in them where they will break apart after so many years. They have a half-life. In other words, like 512 years, half will be gone.
Of the soft tissue.
Yeah, that apparently is what they believe is the rate of decay that they can experimentally show.
Who's they?
The researchers in this article.
The iDINO?
And iDINO, yes.
Okay, or iDINO. Okay.
Let me quote this so just so you know.
Okay. So what they're saying, basically in a nutshell, and you can quote it, is the fact that this idea that the hemoglobin could preserve the soft tissue for 65 million years is
Right.
a ludicrous premise, because they're showing
That's right.
that the half-life of these things is about 500 years. And that's 500 years. See, the thing is, it's like a lot of things, Doug. When something gets so far out there, so much, like for instance, when you talk about 10 below zero or 50 below zero, you just know it's cold.
Right.
When you talk about 10,000 years old or 65 million, it's just a long time ago.
Right.
And we're trying to understand there are quantum amounts of time difference that this stuff could not last. You could not have fossils, and they're coming up. Doug, what are some, did you find the quote?
Well, the researchers was John DiMassa and Edward Bourdreau.
Okay.
And they are the people who analyzed the chemistry of the breakdown, and it shows how the different chemicals that are they find in these different dinosaur bones, and what Mark Armitage did was he found what they call osteocytes.
Yeah.
And the osteocytes are actually cellular structures that join together and form this tissue.
And it stretches.
And it stretches, and it's soft tissue, it's ligaments, it's a part of the bone marrow that is they found in the Triceratops horn.
See, Doug, this seems to be even more damning because it's in the bone. Wasn't it a T-Rex Triceratops horn? Triceratops horn that he found?
Yeah, most of his research has been done with this Triceratops horn that was found in the Hell Creek Formation in Montana.
Yep.
But he's also finding out that he's bought a whole bunch of different fossils from various collectors, and he's finding soft tissue in them.
You know, this reminds you of what's happening when you're not blinded by evolutionary blinders, if you will. They're able to look for things. In other words, granted, if we didn't find soft tissue, it wouldn't disprove creation. But finding soft tissue, although it may not disprove evolution, it sure puts a big slash in it, because a lot of your assumptions have proven to be wrong, and specifically your predictions. You didn't make these findings because you were too blind to see it. You wouldn't look. It's just like the carbon-14 in coal and diamonds, Doug. The soft tissue. And the osteocytes is even more telling than even the hemoglobin and some of the other stuff, because this is right in the middle of the bone. It's stretched. I mean, this is amazing stuff. And this is not, because I was reading again the article they talk about, well, an ostrich must have died on top of the T-Rex.
Yeah, right. And if you find a bunch of these fossils like this, obviously ostriches died on top of
every one of these. Yeah, every one of them. It gets a little ludicrous, and it stretches credibility beyond the pale. I mean, and this is what. But the problem is, because they're so wedded to this, Doug, they cannot let it go. Remember the quote? Who was the guy who was using it? But I always forget who makes it. We cannot allow a supernatural foot in the door. I don't know.
Lee Wanton, I think is his name.
Lee Wanton.
Yeah.
Yeah. He says, no matter how ludicrous or ridiculous the premise is, we have to go by that, because we cannot allow, the evolutionary paradigm cannot allow a supernatural foot in the door. And when you allow for the fact that the world might be young, they know that pretty much eclipses any chance of evolutionary processes as they are describing it to happen. Why? Because no one has ever seen it.
Now, what's interesting to me is that I think deep time is actually an enemy to evolution.
Yeah, everything is an enemy to it, but the thing is, when you don't have evidence for it, you need to basically bait and switch it. You have to say, oh God, it happened so far long ago, and the changes are so gradual, or they happen very quickly over long periods of time, punctuated equilibria, that you cannot ever really see it happening. It's just there. I said, well, this is the amazing thing. We've said this again. It's been said before that, that it's amazing that the lack of evidence is evidence for evolution.
That's right.
And that's what really it comes out to be. And we as creationists do not use evidence to prove our viewpoint, but we believe the evidence should verify the things we think should happen. And there are times when it doesn't, because certain things it doesn't knock out the overarching premise. I understand that, but the idea that we had to change certain things in our understanding of how things work. We've talked about this before, like the canopy theory, those kind of things. These are speculative things, but the evolutionists, they'll do a lot of that amongst themselves. But when it comes when they're facing the idea that a creationist is going to use this information, what does Dr. Schweitzer say? The creationists just don't understand the rules of science.
That's right. Yeah.
And what that means is if we use anything to basically knock down evolution, or that it can be used to support creation, that's immediately not understanding the rules of science. I would say that's not understanding the rules of a religious paradigm. That's what I'm saying. Now,
there's one other ad hoc explanation that evolutionists use to explain away these soft tissues.
Okay.
And that is bacterial biofilms.
Right, that's the other one.
And they say, well, this is not something that actually came from the dinosaur. It came from bacteria leaving this residue within within the bone. And so there's an article in here that actually deals with it. Now, I haven't actually read the article, so I just got this a couple of days ago.
Just recently. In fact, I've not got my copy yet, so I'm kind of looking to get forward to it. But Doug, what we talked about a little bit earlier, the osteocytes in the Triceratops horn, stretchy, soft tissue in the middle of the bone, to me precludes this biofilm. Would it not? I mean, maybe I'm misunderstanding something here. That's more than a biofilm.
Right.
An osteocyte is something that is only found in the bone itself.
Right, and it's interesting. There's a quote here from a sign in the Carnegie Museum of Natural History in Pittsburgh, and it says as part of the fossilization process, soft tissues may be preserved as a carbon film or rarely intact as in amber or ice. Fossils that are traces of prehistoric life have no original organic parts preserved. Traces include impressions of body outlines and skin. Other traces are signs of activity by organisms that lived long ago, such as footprints and trails, burrows, and borings. But this is really incorrect information now that we understand that pieces of the fossilized dinosaurs are actually being preserved.
And that, by the way, that sign will probably remain for years.
No doubt.
Just like the human foot on Lucy remained for years, long after we found out that they had, they basically had more arboreal hands and feet.
Right. If you go to the MSU Museum, you'll see the depiction of the Lucy fossil there.
I don't know if the St. Louis Zoo still has it there, but they had one, and the Chicago Museum of Natural History. Human hands and feet on Lucy, who's an Australopithecine. Now, granted, that's a little bit off the trail, but Doug, we know they do this because the propagandists for falsity are just always out there. And Doug, I will tell you this, that I believe there are really some good evolutionary scientists that will pursue, because they have that integrity, who don't want to pursue truth despite where the evidence goes. But by and large, most of the polemicists, I think, are propagandists. Okay, they are not, and they have no compunction about lying. Even though it's interesting, they accuse us of doing that very same thing. Oftentimes, I find what we see is projection. They're projecting onto you and me and other creationists, something that they themselves are not against doing them to disguise things.
Well, let's face it, Rich. This argument that has been put to us for about 100 years now, that dinosaurs equals millions of years, that is going to persist no matter what kind of evidence that we put out. It's because they've conflated the two.
And I'm saying right now they'd be based on what's happening and how much they're finding the carbon-14 in diamonds, in coal. They're finding soft tissue, DNA evidence, hemoglobin, osteocytes, and it's beginning to get more and more as the creationists are getting original research. They would be far better spent to say, we were wrong. These creatures didn't live that long ago, and this is not an evidence for millions of years, but they're all extinct now or something. They'd be better off to do that.
Well, like these particular dinosaur fossils were found in a layer which is very close to the surface of the Earth. So they didn't have to dig very far down to find these fossils. They were buried in a spot where we know that, and if you use the law of superposition, then it's in the recent layers. It has to be in a recent layer, and it's only dated Cretaceous because you think it's Cretaceous because it's got dinosaurs
in it. Dino in it. Yep, that's exactly right. Yep.
And so I think that this is a powerful evidence for a young Earth, a powerful evidence for Noah's flood.
Yeah, and the dinosaurs and humans did indeed live side by side.
And the evidence that the Bible is accurate in its depiction of history.
Yep.
We hope you enjoyed our show tonight on the iDINO Project. We'll see you next time in a revolution against evolution.